Hi everyone, Paul Miller with another edition to the show, Free Time, Free Spill. Whatever you're doing, it's like when this episode airs, it's gonna be 1 p.m. on a Friday. So I hope that you get a lot from this and it's valuable content, action packed. And I'm with my guest today. He's a doctor, Dr. Brent Satterfield. He invented DNA technologies that have impacted millions of people in more than 50 countries, including in the COVID-19 pandemic. And he's experienced heaven, and he has studied many modalities like matrix energetics, theta healing, Reiki, and other healing modalities. And he's also an author. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Like I'm glad there's not. It's a little cold out here in Louisiana. Like, where are you from?
We're in Salt Lake right now, and there's snow all over the place. Sun's out today, though, fortunately.
Yeah, it gets too cold up north, and that's Utah, huh?
That's Utah.
Oh yeah,
Good skiing, though, if you're into that.
yeah. So, like, what got you into writing a book?
Oh, it's a a really long story. I never intended to be an author, um, but I had a series of experiences with heaven, kind of like near-death experiences, and it wasn't just one; it was multiple. And I realized that as I started reading the near-death experiences other people have had, that they'd have one perspective of heaven, one perspective of God, and they'd come back and say, this is what I experienced, and it was everything, and it was beautiful, but there wasn't a lot of connection between one person's experience and another person's experience. And I realized because I had multiple and it came from different cultural perspectives that it gave me a unique view on what happens on the other side. And then it was a part of the story that wasn't being told yet. So um, I decided to step out there and be a little bit courageous and share my story and be vulnerable. That was a hard thing to do.
So, how did you experience near death experience? Like, was it an accident or was it like meditation?
So that's a wonderful question. You got two types, right? You got the near death experience where the person has an out of body type,
Okay.
and then you've got the like the meditation or prayer or other moments of spontaneous out of body experience. And my first one was actually facilitated by a woman who had died four different times. The first time in a plane crash, and she encountered God during all four of those experiences. And when she came back, she was changed. She was different. She had a gift to help people cross over and have their own experience without having to die to get there. And so she contacted me one day and told me she felt like I was supposed to have that experience. And one of the times in which I met her, I had a vision. There was this incredible feeling that I was holding a piece of her heart. And I came out of a conservative Christian background, so this kind of a concept was really new to me. But I saw in my mind's eye myself placing my hand on her heart, and so without even thinking about it, I started to move my hand toward her heart, and then I thought, oh my gosh, like I I don't know if she's going to be okay with me putting my hand on her chest, and so I
Yeah.
stopped, and she says. No, she grabs my hand and she puts it right over her heart. And she's like, that's exactly where Jesus puts his hand. And as soon as she did that, like I felt this explosion of just energy all through my body where I couldn't feel the difference between my thoughts and her thoughts, and I couldn't feel my body anymore. And it was like numb and vibrating everywhere. And I started asking her, I'm like, what is this feeling? And she's like, that's the feeling that comes right before you cross over. And so she told me to lay down, and then she started using her gift to kind of help open the door the rest of the way. And then I found myself on the other side, starting to have an experience with the light itself, and having a flood of memories coming back of Jesus and of God, and then having experiences with beings on the other side. And that was my first experience. And I went on to have a series of others after that.
Did you know she had like a background in like healing?
I did not. I actually didn't know her at all when she reached out to me. She just reached out and said that she'd been inspired to work with me. I was a spiritual seeker at the time, and so somebody reached out, said they had a near-death experience, and they wanted to help me have something similar. I'm like, wow, that sounds exciting. Um, so I really didn't know much about her before having the whole experience.
what has gotten you into like you're a doctor, right? And like how long have you been practicing?
So I'm not a medical doctor. I'm a PhD. So, sometimes people jokingly refer to that as a doctor who doesn't actually help people. But so I got my degree in biomedical engineering. So I studied the mathematics of how DNA molecules bind to each other. And I used that to develop new technologies. I was very interested in healthcare in the developing world. I, in my younger years, I spent 2 years in Brazil as a missionary working with people in impoverished places. And I just thought, wow, if I could invent technologies to help people in the poorest parts of the world, that would be amazing. So I wanted to develop technologies that would impact people in Africa and India and other places. Um, and so I spent a lot of my adult life traveling around, meeting with government officials from these countries, members of the Red Cross, different philanthropies, and I developed technologies that would detect viruses overseas. And it turned out last year that one of the tests developed with my technologies was a COVID test. And at the time, we thought that it wasn't going to be a big deal. It was just something happening in China. So we were developing it for the developing world. And then all of a sudden it came back to the US and we found ourselves major players in that scene as things unfolded.
Wow, that's awesome. That's really awesome. What are you currently doing? Like working on like you got the technology you worked on and the author, your author. What you currently working on?
Officer for that company, and it's allowing them to grow more to become a bigger company. For me, the fun part was always in the invention, it was in the development. And now that they're focused on production and distribution, it's just a different company. Um, it's a different experience. And then, as you pointed out, I'm an author now of this book with spiritual emphasis. And so I figure I'm going to take a few months to focus on promotion of the book, just sharing the message that is in the book, and see where things go from there.
And you learn from like different cultures, like different modalities, and you study like a lot of healing stuff.
Yeah, so I mean, it may be an unusual combination for some people to think about somebody with, a science background who's been in the business world and successful in that community to then cross over into healing. But for me, it's still part of the same question. As I was developing scientific innovations for the third world, it finally hit me that it didn't matter how many drugs we donate to the third world. It's never enough. That people are suffering, they're hurting, and it's more than just the disease. There is a poverty consciousness, and what the world needs is not just healing from disease, but healing from the afflictions of the heart that keep people feeling disempowered. Um, and so I started looking more into that and found that there was an overlap between the experiences that I was having with heaven and also um, the types of things that are being taught in some of these energy healing modalities, like matrix energetics, theta healing, just a whole variety that I experienced. And it wasn't just energy healing that I studied. I went and studied with like Christian street healers, studied with Hindu healers. I've studied with people from different cultures and just wanted to look at the effects of faith and how it impacts people's ability to heal themselves, to heal others, and how it changes the heart.
What is matrix energetics? That's my first time hearing it.
So, matrix energetics was a technique for healing that was developed by Richard Bartlett. And it if you kind of look at the different religious forms of healing, you got like Christian healing where people might pray over each other, or Hindu healing where there's a different kind of a blessing that goes on. If you were to start looking at the commonalities between all these different religious forms of healing, you might find that there are some overlap, some similarities. And from a scientific perspective, if you were to be able to take those similarities and pull them out of the religious construct and then just focus on the experience itself of healing, of being healed, um, then that kind of gives a basis for some of these energy healing modalities. And matrix energetics is one that looks at the structure free capacity to heal people and to have changes not just in the physical body, but changes in consciousness, changes in the way that we perceive ourselves and the world around us.
Any books that you recommend that in the healing field that you love?
Probably my favorite book in the healing field is by Dr. Joe Dispenza, You Are the Placebo, because he does such a good job at blending some of the scientific papers out there on people who have spontaneously healed during scientific studies, and then talking about what might be going on in the center of our hearts, that affects that causes people to spontaneously heal from cancer or something else, because he gets into the whole idea, like in the scientific community, the idea of placebo is seen in a negative light, that it's, oh, that was just the placebo effect, as if it wasn't real healing, but the people were actually really healed. I mean, you have somebody that receives a fake knee surgery and yet somehow their knee heals, or they receive a fake heart surgery and yet their heart heals. They receive a sugar pill instead of medicine and somehow their cancer is gone. I mean, this is real healing, but it's just happening for a reason that scientists can't explain. And so they just want to like invalidate that so they can focus on how to sell their medicine or sell their drug, instead of actually looking at why did it happen to begin with. And if we've got the capacity to heal ourselves, if our bodies are that miraculous and, magical as it were, then how can we, increase that effect instead of trying to get rid of it so we can sell our medicines? How do we actually get our bodies to do what they were made to do and heal themselves? And so I believe that Dr. Joe Dispenza does the best job of anybody that I've seen in explaining that process and how it works. So I would recommend that book, You Are the
Yeah.
Placebo.
Any causes you're working on? Like you made the technology and like it's so much stuff you're doing. Like any causes that you're working towards, like humanitarian stuff?
There are so many beautiful causes in the world, and I would encourage anybody that has a desire to help to get out there and help and just follow your heart, because each one of us are made uniquely, and what we're interested in isn't going to be what somebody else is. For me personally, I am very interested in seeing individuals around the world let go of their fear, their guilt, their shame, let go of their judgment, and to start to be empowered to feel joy in their own hearts, to feel connection with the divine, um, to have it be a real experience, not something we just talk about that could be experienced after this life, or that only select people in this life get to experience, but something that everybody can experience in the here and now.
What's some modalities you studied that are like that can really help people that they can start on today?
So, I mean, my book gives people a place to start bringing heaven home. It's available on Amazon, paperback, and Kindle, and it walks through a whole series of different experiences that I've had, but also kind of opens the window to saying that divine experience isn't just the privilege of one or two people. It's an experience we can all have. It's an experience we all should have, and that we can feel that divine love in this current moment. I reference a number of other different modalities in there, and my honest thought about that is there's not a one size fits all. Each one of us are almost like a combination lock. We each have a unique combination to open our hearts, and so we have to get really good at trusting our own inner guidance, trusting what our hearts are telling us, and having the courage to get out there and do that, even when the people around us um, aren't in favor of that. And that as we do that, we find the combination to our own heart. And as it unlocks, then we start to have our own experiences. So, get exposed to a bunch of different ideas. And as you're exposed, listen to what your heart's telling you. I mean, at some point in time, your heart's going to light up and say, that one, you need to start there. And that's where you ought to go.
Yeah, and take notes like with your visions and stuff and like what you're working on, like a to-do list, like simple to-do list that really helps.
Absolutely.
You said about the technologies that you invented, like what it was a company that's like like what you're working on next, like a company, like I couldn't hear.
Yeah. So I worked with a company. Um, I've worked with a number of companies over the years, and they're taking my technology and running with it. So it's almost like I invented it, they own it, they're working with it, they're continuing to develop things with it. but that's part of what I used to do. And moving forward, my interest is it's not just healing people's physical bodies, it's helping them become aware of how their own thoughts, their own emotions are impacting the world around them, because there's a connection between what we feel and what we believe about ourselves and the world around us and how the world shows up for us. So if you can help people begin to expand the possibilities that they see, expand the hope that they feel, then their lives get better, the world around them gets better. And if we can do that collectively as a society, as the whole of humanity, then we can see our earth begin to change. We can see our world begin to get better. And that was one of the biggest things that I saw and learned on the other side, is that we are influencing the way and the timing of how our earth transitions into a higher state,
Evolution and evolving.
an evolving of human consciousness. Absolutely.
You're working on a course too?
Working on courses, yes. So, um, as much as I like to say that I could put everything into a single book, you just can't, because there's so many ideas, and we're all so unique that sometimes we need follow up. And so I'm working with a group of people at Inner World Movement who are trying to develop coursework, other supplemental materials to help people begin to become aware of what's going on in their heart, and to take that journey to discover themselves, to discover their connection to the divine, and to completely reimagine themselves, reimagine the world in a way that changes their lives and that changes the experiences that are showing up in the world around them.
Has the healing modalities like taught you about like emotional release?
Absolutely. um, there I pretty much all the modalities that I've interacted with work with emotional release. One of the ones that I like best for emotional release was theta healing, because it gets really down into the subconscious beliefs that are responsible for the emotions we feel to things that are happening in our lives. And so it was just a great beginning place to really develop awareness for what emotions are taking place inside, where they come from, and then starting to establish your own power to where you're not a victim to your emotions anymore. You're not a victim to your world anymore, but you can start to create your own emotions. And as you do that, start to see the world around you respond in a different way.
What are your thoughts about like medicines and natural herbs?
There is a place for all things, medicines, herbs, and then, different types of healing modalities. There is a place for all of them. And I know as a scientist, we're all supposed to toe the party line of clinical trials and double-blinded studies. And I'm all for that. It has a place. But there are a lot of people who, even after going through that, can't find healing. And for those who are healed through some other form, scientists like to say, well, that was a placebo effect. But I promise you that if you had cancer and all of a sudden you're better, you don't care if it was a placebo effect, you don't care if it was a drug, you don't care if it was anything else. It's like you're better. And it was a miracle for that person to get better. So uh, I think, in today's society, it's always appropriate to say, start with your medical doctor, start with the best that science knows. And if that's not enough, then do these other things too. So I'm for all of them.
Yes, sir. If it helps, like if you're alive, like if it helps you stay alive, like it's like it should be a good benefit.
Absolutely.
Remedies. What else you would like to share before we close? Like anything you would like to share with the listeners?
Yeah. I'd like to say that that your experience, no matter what it is important. One of the most important things I saw on the other side was that we are loved, and we are loved in a way that it is phenomenal. It's like all of your most difficult experiences, all of the hardest things in your life, it's like heaven looks right through all of that, right past it. Heaven's not the one that's judging us, we are, and heaven's job is to help us release that judgment. And we don't have to wait until after this life to feel that love. We can actually start to allow the release of that judgment right now. And as we do so, as our hearts heal, we can find that our lives improve greatly, dramatically. and to say that your experience matters. There's no other person just like you in all of this world. No other person with your unique genetic signature, with your unique way of seeing the world. And that way of seeing the world is important. It's wonderful, it's beautiful, and allow yourself to be you, to find joy in what you came here to be.
Wow, that's so powerful. Any links you would like to like how can people connect with you? Like with your books and all that you have to offer?
So, again, my book is Bringing Heaven Home by Dr. Brent Satterfield. That's on Amazon, paperback, and Kindle. They can also connect with me at innerworldmovement.com, Instagram at Inner World Movement, and any of those ways they can connect. They can read the book, they can see what I'm working on next, they can get support if that's something that they're looking for to help become aware of what's going on in their inner space and help make that transition. And whether with us or with somebody else, I absolutely encourage you to open your heart to accept the help that's around you, whether that's with friends or and if you don't have anybody like that in your life right now, to open yourself so that you can start attracting into your space people who will help you, who will allow you to start evolving as a human being, to start having better experiences in your life.
I love the story, like how you connected with other cultures and learned these modalities. Did you actually go to any of the countries? That was my other question.
I did. I've been to Latin America. I've been to India. Probably the most exotic trip is I spent some time living in an ashram in India, and as a coming out of a conservative Christian background, that was just a phenomenal experience to just to have that contrast. And um, but also the heavenly experiences, they were cross-cultural. It wasn't like because I was coming out of a conservative Christian background that I was just being shown things that Christians would think they would see. I was being shown things from other religions, and I was being led to understand how the truths in all of these different religions are important, that the unique perspectives are important, and that it's only through letting go of our judgments and working together that the world can rise.
You know, can unite as one.
Yep. Yep.
Oh, I thank you for so much that you like just coming on the show. Like it's been great, good conversation. Like I feel that we talked about it all, like to get your message across. And like any questions I miss.
We could talk for hours or even days, I'm sure, but if people felt something in this and they want to hear more, they can come check us out at innerworldmovement.com or come read my book, which is on Amazon, and we can go from there. But thank you so much. This has been a wonderful interview.
Oh yes, and they can connect with you. Like yes, thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, peace.
Peace.